Welcome back, everybody. This is where we left off in the last video. We were able to design our current weather page, and we'll continue from where we stopped. All right, so I'm going to stop this project now. I'm going to make this a full screen. Now, the first thing we want to do is to name some of our controls, so some of our labels that we want to assign values to. So I will go ahead and give them a name. So I'll fast forward this video because I don't want you to just watch me typing a bunch of text. Okay. Okay, so now we have all our controls named so that we can reference them in code. So the next we're going to do is in our helper folder, let's create a class. And we're going to call it the API caller. Now in this class, we're going to have a static method, and what the method will do is to help us. It's going to be an helper class to handle the API call. Okay, so but before that, I want to create a class, and what the class will do is to put the response of our API. So I'm going to embed it into this class. I'm going to say public class API response. Now in this class, we want to hold three properties. So we have a property of bool to check if it's successful. Let's call it successful. Successful. Okay. We have we need another property for error message. That's going to be a string. The error message. And the last one will be what's going to hold the object that is coming from the API. So we're going to call that our response. So it's going to be a JSON string that we have serialized. Let's call it response. Okay, so before I leave here, I want to set these properties so that anytime the error message is null, then we want to set it successful. So anytime there is no error message, we want to convert that to a successful API call. So I'm going to do check if error message equals null. So if error message equals null, then that means our API response is successful. But if it is not, then it means the API response, the API call is not successful. Okay, so right inside here, I'm going to use the HTTP client to okay, so here I'm going to get a static method. let's say public static async um let's say task. We'll make a task of API response. That's what we want to return. Then I have to resolve this statement. And so let's call it get. So it's going to be a get method, and the parameters is going to be the URL and an optional parameter um, called the auth ID. That is if you need to pass an authorization to the header. So because I know that in the future we will need this, so string auth ID. So let's set it to null, so as to make it optional. Okay. So oh, so right here I'm going to paste in a code snippet, a very short one. So the first thing we're trying to check. So let me resolve some using statements here. Okay, public static static async. Sorry. Okay. So the first thing we are doing here is to get the HTTP client, and we're checking if the auth ID is not null, then you should add an authorization header and pass in the auth ID. So then go ahead and get the string from this URL and get the response. If the response is a successful response code, then we return a response with the string that we're getting from the API. And if the response is not the status code is not successful, then it's going to pass. We are going to return an error message, and we're going to get the reason why it failed. Okay, so that is for our API caller. All right, so now the next thing we want to do, let's go back to our current weather, the code behind. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is to get a private property string. Let's call it location, and let's set this to default of, say, France. Now this is the location I want to pass to the API. Okay, so now the API that we'll be using is the Open Weather Map API, and this is it right here. So you can go to openweathermap.org, and you can go to the API section to get your own API key. So you have to register and sign in to get your own API key. Once you have that, then you use it uh, in the API call. Okay, so to get a weather for a current location, we have two different ways. You can pass in the like you see right here, you can pass in the city and the country, then your app ID. So your app ID is going to be your API key. Okay, so this particular uh, API key is going to be used for tests. You have to get your own so that you'll be able to test along. Okay, so this is the sample response that you're going to get, and from this JSON response, we can use it to generate our class object that's going to hold these references. And what you can do is to copy this response, and So what you want to do, what's advisable to do is first of all get the call like this. So you copy this particular response, for example, and use it to generate a class. Okay, so let's do this. Though I have the class model already, but let me show you how you can generate your own class model. So you copy this and come to um, the project. Let's create a model, add a class, and let's call the name of this class. Let's say weather object, because we're going to have different classes in it. So I'm going to remove this one. So you can right here you can come to edit, paste special, paste JSON as class. So this will bring some it's going to convert the JSON that's already in the clipboard into a class that I can use. Well, since I've already created my own class, what I'm going to do is to bring in the class all together right here. Okay, so I'm going to bring in the class right here. Okay, so this is the class that we're going to be using to deserialize our object. So the first thing we're going to be using the forecast info, and also we're going to be using uh, the weather info right here. These are the two entry points. So this one is going to hold the weather info, and this is going to hold the forecast info. All other classes are members of those two classes. Okay, so back right here, what I'm going to do now is to get a method. So I want to create a method that's going to get weather info, and another method that is going to get the forecast info. So let's create a private method, private uh, async with async void. Let's call it get weather info. So right here, the first thing is the our weather URL. Okay, so I'm going to construct the weather URL in such a way that we can pass in the parameter. So I'm doing string formatting here. This is the URL, and right here I'm concatenating the location. I'm replacing the query with with whatever location that we have here, instead of hard coding in the string. So I'm separating it so that easily we can change the location to see a different result. So the app ID and also the units. I'm using the metrics. So if you want to see the units that you have available, you can see it on the website of the open weather. The interpretation of all the units are right down here. So you can see that metric is for temperature, metric is going to be Celsius. For wind, it's going to be meter per second. So I'm using the metric. If you like, you can use you can leave it as default. Default to be Kelvin at this point, or you can use the imperial. The imperial will be Fahrenheit. So you can play around with the metric. Okay. So now the next thing we're going to do is now call our to call this to get the string, the weather information. So I'm going to do, let's put this in the result object. So result equals await our API caller. Let's resolve this, the using statements. So in the helper namespace dot get, and we'll pass in the URL. Okay, so since we have the result in an object, so the first one to check is if our result is successful. If result is successful, then want to bind the data to the view. If it's not successful, then we want to display a message that it's not successful. Okay, so if it's not successful, display a message that there is no weather information found. If it is successful, let's start to put things into the view. All right, so let's do a try catch just to catch for exception. Um, so in case we have an exception, we can know what the issue is. So the first thing I'm going to do here is to get the weather object, the weather info rather, weather info, and we're going to deserialize the response that is coming from the API. So we're going to use JSON convert. So JSON convert is in Newton Soft. I don't think I've installed it. Okay, so I've not installed it. So Visual Studio can help us to do it, the installation, find and install the latest version. So Visual Studio will go ahead and install it from NuGet and add to our project. Okay, so it has been added successfully. So that's this realized object. And we're going to put it in a weather. We're going to cast it as a weather info object. I have to resolve this namespace because in the model namespace, and they'll pass in the string that is coming from the result. So that's going to be our result.response. Okay, so now we have the weather info object, and right in the weather info, we can now start to get all our properties. So I'm going to copy a code snippet and paste right here. So what we are doing is all our named control, the label, we are getting the text value of each of these. So in this way, excuse me, in this weather info, we have the weather. So the weather is an array of weather, and so we're taking the first one and getting the description out. Also for the icon, we are getting from the first index, that's the index 0, the icon. For the city, we are getting the name out. For the temperature is in main, the temperature, humidity is in main, humidity, pressure is in main dot pressure, wind, and the cloudiness. If you check the documentation online on the website, you can see the interpretation of all this where they are the parameters. So in the main, you can see the main temp and all other parameters that you see right here. So that was how I was able to get all this out of the object. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is the date. So the date that is coming is in a Unix is in Unix format. If you look, let's check the documentation and see. So the DT is date time of data calculation and is in Unix etc. So we have to do a little conversion for our date before we pass it to the view. So the conversion is like this: creating a new date time, universal time, and adding the seconds, and the seconds is in that Unix time that is coming from um, the API. Then I'm now casting to string in this format. So we want to get the day of the week, the month, and the date. So if you check our prototype, that's what we are using right here. So it's the day of the week, the month, and the date. So that's the format that we have right here. Okay, so let's run this and see what we have. Okay, so we're not seeing any difference, and the reason is because we then call our method right here. So what we're going to do is to call this method uh, right in the constructor. So let's run it again. Let's see. Okay, so if you're targeting Android 9.0, you're going to face with this error saying clear text HTTP traffic to this endpoint is not permitted. So apparently in Android 9.0, that's the permission has been set to has been disabled by default. So what we're going to do is to enable that clear text traffic permission in our in the Android manifest. So let's go to our project here. Let's go to properties and open the Android manifest. So right in this in the application part here, so you're going to add the Android the use clear text traffic and set it to true. So like this, so and use clear text traffic and set it to true. This will solve the issue. So let's run it again and see. Yes, as you can see, our weather information has changed. The location is currently France. The temperature is 30, and you can see the temperature for. You can see other information such as humidity, wind, pressure, and cloudiness has also changed. But the weather forecast part has not changed because we've not implemented it. Those are still our default values. So that will be the next thing we're going to do. So let's go ahead and implement the weather forecast. So for the weather forecast, I'm going to create another method called get forecast. It's going to follow a similar approach. So I'm going to have private. Let's do async void get forecast, and it's going to follow the same thing. So that now the the URL for weather forecast is similar to that of weather. So, but instead of weather, we're going to have slash data slash 2.0 slash forecast. Instead of having slash weather here, you're going to have slash forecast. Then the query also gets the location, and you also pass in your app ID and the units. Okay, so the same way we're going to get some data. So I'm just going to copy uh, code snippet out and paste, and I will explain what I have done right here. Okay, so at this point we are getting the results uh, out. We've gotten the result out. Check if the result is successful. Then we deserialize into a forecast info. So this forecast is part of our weather object, like I mentioned the other time, right up here. This is the object. So we're using it to cast to deserialize the string, and now we have a list of lists. This list is actually coming from the forecast info. Say this is a list. This is an array. So what I'm trying to do is to get a list of the list of days of weather forecast. The information that is returning is about it's hourly. So open weather will return the hourly weather forecast for every hour, but based on our design, let me show you. Based on our design, we just need uh, daily. We need for the other 4 days. But open weather will give you for 5 days, 5 to 6 days hourly. So it's going to return a lot of data. So what we're trying to do here is to get all the lists of data that was returned, then check the date. we are passing the date uh, into a date format, into a new date time, then check if the date is greater than today, because we already have the data for today. If this is greater than today and it's at midnight, so that's the hour, minutes, and second. So you see some you see uh for 00 for 0 hour, you see for uh, the first hour, second hour, third hour, up to uh I think up to the 24th hour, I think. So there are just there are series of data that will be returned. So we are getting the list of dates, and check if the date is greater than today's date, and adding it to a list. Now, from that list, what we now try to do is, from that list we are picking the first four. So as you see, the index 0, you see index 1, index 2, and index 3. Then we are binding the values to each of these item here. So this is for index 0, index 1, index 2, and index 3. Now, ideally, this is not the best approach to go about this. I must say, you're supposed to probably work with a list and just bind the data to the view. But for sake of simplicity and in order to be able to cater for all my audience, that's why I decided to go with this approach. And normally, when I develop application, I use the MVVM approach. I don't even do the code behind style. So this is just for sake of simplicity, and I noticed that most of my audience are beginners, so I don't want to introduce complex stuff in this tutorial. Okay, so now that we have this, let's let's call our forecast immediately after we've been able to successfully get um, the weather info. And in this exception, we want to also get out whatever the exception is, so that we'll be able to know. All right, so it's all looking good. Let's run this. Okay, so as you can see now, the information as forecast has changed. We have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So today is a Saturday. I'm recording on a Saturday, and the forecast. This is the weather information for France, for Sunday, for Monday, for Tuesday, and for Wednesday. Okay, so before we go, let's just do this. Let's select a different location. So let's say um, Ireland. Okay, so this is the weather information for Ireland. It's 3 degrees currently, and you can see the forecast here. For Sunday it's going to be 2, for Monday it's going to be 0, for Tuesday it's going to be 2, for Wednesday it's going to be 1. You can see other parameters like humidity, wind, pressure, and cloudiness. Okay guys, there we have it. Now, in the next video, we are going to be working with geocoordinates. So we're going to extract the current location. So instead of manually supplying the location, the application will extract the GPS, the geocoordinate of your current location, and we'll pass that to the Open Weather API to get the weather information of that location. So endeavor to subscribe. If you like this, if you have enjoyed this video, please like it, and also please share with friends and colleagues so that they can also take advantage of this video. Don't forget to also click on the notification icon so that you get notification when I upload new content. Please subscribe. That will encourage me to do more videos. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video.